Hey Patreon, how's it going? Just on Saturday during the cafe chat, I promised you all the story of how I ended up in Paris. It'll take me a few minutes to tell it, so you might want to pause this and go grab a cup of coffee. I've got my trusty English breakfast here, which I drink all throughout the day, whether it's called breakfast or not. So I think when you hear this story, you'll appreciate why I am so grateful to be in Paris, because I have no right to be, really. It was so serendipitous and random. So I studied art at a school called RISD, a college called RISD in Rhode Island. Studied fine arts, painting, and a lot of art history, which I guess is where I get my love for a lot of the stuff in Paris. But I discovered the guitar in art school, and it really grabbed hold of me, and I love to sing and play the guitar and perform. So when I left school, I ended up in New York City, and I was living in Brooklyn with some painter buddies, and I would see musicians on the subway platform in New York. It was quite common, and some of them seemed to be doing okay. And I thought, boy, I'm not making any money as a painter. Should I give that a shot? It took quite a bit of courage, actually, to go down and try it out. But I found a train station in Brooklyn that would get really quiet at night, and there would be like 10 minutes between each train. And it was great acoustics, and I would go down there and there'd just be a few people on the platform. And I gave it a shot one night, put out the case, people throwing dollar bills in, and it went pretty well the first night. So I said, well, it might be something to this. So I would go out there, and I actually ended up supporting myself just by singing for my supper, essentially. Not a glamorous lifestyle, but it paid the bills for sure. And I did that for many years. Really, really liked it. So one night I'm down there, it's 2006, I'm 29 years old, and I'm just doing my thing. It's an average night, and what I don't know is that there's a Parisian girl called Charlotte on vacation. She had been in New York City for a few days, and she was there with her friends. It was her last night in the city, and she didn't want to go out, but her friends dragged her out for one last night on vacation, and she was waiting on that subway platform for the L train on Bedford Avenue, for those of you who are interested. And she listened to me. She heard this musician singing. Rather than approaching me that night, she decided, as you often do on vacation, she just kind of discreetly took a video. So she had her camera out and she was just recording me singing, and she never approached me that night. What she did was she threw a tip in, and before she got on her train, she managed to grab my email address that I would keep in my guitar case. So I didn't know who she was at that time. She pops on the train, has her last night in New York, flies back to Paris. 2 weeks later, I get an email from Paris, and it says, "Hi, you don't know me, but I saw you singing in New York, and I really like your music. I'm a fan. I just want to say good luck with it, and thank you." So I said, "Oh, where are you from?" "In Paris," and "Oh my goodness," and we essentially became pen pals. So instant messaging. This was the time of MySpace and things like that, and instant messaging. So I saved up to buy a webcam. Back in 2006, actually, the webcams were huge, and you would stick them on top of your monitor. And so I saved up my dollar bills to get a webcam so that we could see each other and chat. And we did that every single day for a year, and we really became quite good friends. She was teaching me French. I had my little notebook, and I'd write phrases in and practice, and I would tell her about New York and about music and art and things like that. My mom knew about this, and about a year later, it's 2007, and I'm turning 30 years old. So my mom surprises me and says, "Listen, you've got a friend in Paris. For your birthday, why don't I take you there?" And it was going to be the first time that I had ever left the United States. So I had to get a passport and all of that. So my mom and I fly over to Paris, and the first time I saw Charlotte, who, spoiler alert, is my wife today. First time I saw her for real, coming out of baggage claim at Charles de Gaulle Airport with my mom. And I was nervous at the time because, of course, it's one thing to have an online relationship with someone, but when you meet them in person, you have no idea how it's going to go down, right? So we spent 5 days in Paris. It was one of those whirlwind trips, and my mom was so cool. She kind of knew what was going on, maybe, and she just let me spend time with Charlotte, and we would go out and do things, the three of us. But out of the 4 nights that I spent in Paris, 2 of them I spent with my mom in the hotel, and the other 2 I spent with Charlotte. So what can I say? Paris is the city of love, and as Charlotte and I are, sightseeing, and she's showing me around, and ironically, she was actually my tour guide for those 5 days, and we would start to hold hands, and we would start to cuddle a little bit, and it was cold, and I would kind of rub her hands and help her warm up and things like that. So it kind of clicked really, really quickly, and we'd had that year previous of a friendship online. So we left Paris, and I remember flying back home Again, this was the first time I'd ever been out of the States. I'm in Europe. I'm in the City of Light. I meet this girl. I'm kind of falling in love, and it felt so surreal. I was thinking, man, on the flight, I was thinking that must have been a dream. And so I went back, and not knowing if I'd ever see this girl again, but what we did is Charlotte and I started saving up, and we would fly back and forth for the next year to see each other. A few weeks in New York, a few weeks in Paris, and we knew it wouldn't last, but we were just going with it. Eventually, after a year of that, and we ran out of money, of course, she gets a student visa, even though she wasn't technically a student. She had already graduated school, but finagled her way into a student visa via a teacher that she knew quite well and that she was fond of. So she moved to New York for 1 year, and that's when we actually lived together. So we're doing our thing, and I'm playing my music, and she's doing sort of designer and artistic jobs. And at the end of that year, it was kind of a do or die situation, because we were like, listen, either we get married or we just pack it in, because we can't keep doing this going back and forth. So we had that talk, and we decided that we were going to stay together anyway. So even though marriage wasn't something that we were exactly itching to do, it didn't mean that much to us to have the piece of paper. But we were like, you know what? We love each other. We want to be together. We're committed to this thing for the long haul. So if our two countries need us to be married, to be together, let's go for it. And so we did. We flew down to the Caribbean because it was much too crazy to get the French family over to New York and try to do kind of like a Central Park wedding and with no budget. So the two of us flew down to the Grand Cayman Islands, or Grand Cayman Island, and we got married at sunset with the pastor there, and our two witnesses were the pastor's wife and his mom. So it was kind of crazy. And then we went back to the States, and I had an American reception. And then we moved permanently to France, where we had the French family party. So that's it. It's crazy. It's just the idea of me being kind of starving artist, musician, doing my thing. And she saw me there, and luckily she had enough time before her train arrived in Brooklyn that night to grab my email address. And here I am. So that's why I'm so darn appreciative and so grateful for being in Paris, because I didn't realize it that night in 2006. My whole world was about to change, and my life at that moment was being steered toward Paris. Now, the crazy thing is we still have the video that she took that night, which is 12 years ago, of me singing in the subway. And I'm oblivious as to who she is, just another fan with a camera. And behind me on the bench in the video, her friends that she was in New York with are there behind me. And of course, at that time, they're complete strangers to me, but I didn't know that if I fast forwarded a few years, they would become my friends in Paris. So there are a lot of lovely aspects to this. Nowadays, my wife, sometimes when we're lying in bed, she'll even ask me to, she'll say, honey, can you tell me our love story again? Because she likes to hear it as well. So it's pretty crazy. Maybe I'll sell the rights to a movie producer one of these days. And the wild thing is, and the way that I'm going to finish this is, as I said, that video exists. And if you're interested in seeing a younger version of Corey by 12 years, I'm 29 years old at this time, you're going to see the exact video that my future wife took of me doing my thing back then in New York. And it was the moment that would lead me to Paris. So enjoy that to close out this video, and have a great day, everybody. I'll see you very soon.